Hey everyone, Nigel and Luke here, and welcome to another edition of Crimes of the Week International. If you're a regular viewer of our Crimes of the Week International series, you might remember that early last year we brought you an alarming case out of Ecuador. It was here, in the city of Guayaquil, that one of the country's most high-profile drug traffickers managed to escape from prison. Well, we're happy to report that after more than a year on the run, Ecuador's most notorious fugitive drug lord has finally been recaptured in a dramatic raid that exposed just how far he was willing to go to stay hidden. It all happened early on the morning of Wednesday, June 25th, when security forces tracked down 44-year-old Jose Adolfo Macias Villamar, better known by his alias Fito. Fito is the infamous leader of Los Choneros, a powerful gang blamed in part for turning Ecuador from a once tranquil tourist destination into one of the deadliest countries in the region. If you'll recall, Fito originally vanished in January of 2024 from Guayaquil Regional Prison, where he'd been serving a 34-year-old sentence for drug trafficking, organized crime, and murder. His disappearance came to light during a routine weapons inspection and sparked a wave of violence across Ecuador. Prison riots, dozens of deaths, police officers taken hostage, and even armed men storming a live television broadcast, all of which caused the government to declare a state of internal armed conflict. Desperate to bring him in, authorities offered a $1 million reward and launched an international manhunt. But the real breakthrough didn't come until about a month ago, when police closed in on Fito's family, arresting several relatives, seizing assets, and raiding their businesses, part of which officials called a psychological operation to tighten the net. The crucial lead, though, came from an unexpected place. Investigators noticed that a local municipal transit official in Fito's hometown of Manta had mysteriously stopped showing up for work. Surveillance soon linked this official to a lavish marble-walled mansion equipped with an indoor pool, gym, and game room, and decorated with statues of St. Jude Thaddeus, the patron saint of hopeless causes, often venerated by Mexican cartels. Final confirmation that Fito was actually inside reportedly came from his own young daughter. Acting quickly, hundreds of heavily armed police and soldiers moved in before dawn, closing off a 15-block radius to seal the area. Still, initially, when they searched the house, Fito was nowhere to be found. Using drones, officers spotted disturbed vegetation and uneven ground, signs of possible underground construction. Sure enough, hidden beneath the laundry room floor of the residence was a small hatch revealing a staircase leading to an air-conditioned bunker designed to be opened only from the inside. As the police brought in heavy equipment to start digging, the ceiling of the bunker began to buckle. Fearing it would collapse and crush him, Fito panicked, opened the hatch, and climbed out, where he was met by armed officers who forced him to confirm his name at gunpoint. Moments later, shirtless, bearded, and visibly exhausted, Fito was escorted out and immediately transferred under heavy guard to La Roca, Ecuador's highest security prison located in the same Guayaquil complex he originally escaped from. Authorities also arrested 4 men from his security detail who had been guarding the hideout. According to police, no shots were fired during the entire 10-hour operation. Ecuador's president, Daniel Noboa, quickly confirmed the arrest, crediting newly approved security and intelligence laws for the successful operation. He also announced that Fito would now be extradited to the United States, where prosecutors have indicted him on multiple federal charges, including drug trafficking conspiracy and firearms offenses. In April, a grand jury in New York formally accused him of importing and distributing thousands of pounds of cocaine into the U.S. In a social media post after the arrest, Ecuador's interior minister declared, quote, "Nothing and no one is above the law." The residents of a small coastal town in Northern Ireland have been left shocked and devastated after a young mother was allegedly murdered just weeks before she was supposed to give birth to her 3rd child. The case began on the afternoon of June 28th, when police were called to a residence on Elmfield Walk in the town of Donaghadee. They arrived to find the homeowner, 27-year-old Sarah Montgomery, unresponsive inside. Right now, almost no information has been released about the details of the scene or what injuries Sarah was suffering. But what we do know is this. Sadly, she was pronounced dead a short time later, and the case was quickly investigated as a murder. The situation is especially tragic because Sarah was not the only victim. In addition to leaving behind 2 young daughters, she was heavily pregnant at the time of her death and was due to give birth to a baby boy just next month. Heartbreakingly, the unborn child also did not survive. A man, later identified as 28-year-old Zach Hughes, has since been arrested for the crime. He is now facing charges of murder and child destruction, though police have so far not provided any information about a possible motive or how they connected Hughes to the killing. An unidentified 42-year-old woman was also initially taken into custody on suspicion of assisting an offender, though she has since been released. The awful crime has hit the small coastal town very hard. According to reports, Sarah was well known in the community and had grown up there. She could often be seen picking up her daughters from the same elementary school that she had attended when she was a child. The news of her murder has resulted in an outpouring of grief, with many locals traveling to her home in the past few days to leave flowers, stuffed animals, and other tributes. At the same time, a GoFundMe set up to help support Sarah's daughters has since raised more than £37,000. At the time of this recording, Zach Hughes remains in custody, and the situation is still under investigation. A bizarre early morning robbery involving a garbage bag, a knife, and a stolen taxi sent Hong Kong police scrambling last Friday, and has now ended with 1 man in custody. According to investigators, the whole thing began just after 2 a.m. on June 27th, when a man entered a convenience store in the New Territories district of Hung Shoi Kyu. He was wearing black clothes and had draped a black garbage bag over his head and upper body. Not exactly high-tech camouflage, but effective enough to conceal his identity, at least for a little while. Inside the store, the suspect, described as a slim 40-year-old South Asian man, allegedly pulled out a roughly 10-inch-long kitchen knife and threatened the 52-year-old female cashier. Frightened, she handed over 1,500 Hong Kong dollars in cash, about $200 USD, along with 7 packs of cigarettes. The suspect didn't stop there, though. Upon leaving the store, he reportedly made his way to the nearby Hung Shoi Kyu light rail station, where he flagged down a taxi. After climbing in and instructing the driver to head toward Yuen Long, the situation took another sharp turn. When they reached Long Tin Road, the suspect allegedly pulled out the knife again, this time turning it on the 44-year-old male taxi driver. He ordered the man out of the vehicle and then drove off in the stolen cab. According to police, he also took the driver's phone, tablet, the equivalent of about $430 US, and, for some reason, a towel. Thankfully, neither victim was physically harmed during the ordeal. And while it's not every day someone commits an armed robbery wearing literal trash, police weren't about to let the man get away. A search operation was quickly launched. After combing through a mountain of CCTV footage, officers located the stolen taxi parked in Yuen Long district. Just before 10 a.m., roughly 8 hours after the initial robbery, the suspect was arrested nearby. He was reportedly still in possession of several stolen items, including the cigarettes, 5,000 Hong Kong dollars in cash, and, again, the cab driver's towel. Officers also discovered that he did not have a valid driver's license or insurance. The man is now facing a series of charges, including robbery and driving without a license. At the time of this recording, the suspect remains in custody as police continue their investigation. Representatives from Japan's Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department say that a 50-year-old man is in custody this week after he allegedly murdered his co-worker in the middle of a busy office in broad daylight, later telling officers he did it because he had lost patience with the victim. The whole thing started at around 11:50 a.m. on July 1st, when police were called to a high-rise commercial building in Tokyo's Ikebukuro area. Emergency callers explained that a man had just been stabbed at a law firm, and that both the victim and the attacker were employees there. Paramedics and police rushed to the scene as quickly as they could, but the situation was made more difficult by the fact that the office in question was on the 31st floor. By the time they got there, the victim, 36-year-old Daiki Yoshino, had no vital signs. He was soon pronounced dead at a local hospital. After speaking more to witnesses, authorities learned that Daiki had been sitting at his desk doing work that morning when suddenly he was attacked out of nowhere by another employee, 50-year-old Raeto Watanabe. After approaching Daiki from behind, Watanabe allegedly stabbed him numerous times in the neck without ever giving him a chance to defend himself. Fortunately, police didn't have to spend any time searching for Watanabe. Immediately following the incident, he apparently left the office and headed right for a nearby police box where he turned himself in. After presenting officers with the blood-stained knife allegedly used in the attack, Watanabe reportedly confessed that he attacked Daiki because of a long-held grudge against him. It's not clear if he actually mentioned what this grudge was about, but apparently he did say that his anger had boiled over. He told officers, quote, "I don't remember stabbing him, but before I knew it, I had done it." He went on to clarify that he was not sorry either, stating, quote, "I finally lost my patience. I stabbed him, and I didn't even care if he died." At the time of this recording, Watanabe remains in custody on suspicion of murder. Representatives from England's Greater Manchester Police say that a male suspect has been arrested on multiple charges this week following a strange and terrifying incident in which he was caught on video attacking people in broad daylight while completely naked. The whole thing unfolded sometime on the afternoon of June 29th, when Greater Manchester Police began receiving emergency calls from concerned members of the public. They were told that an unknown man was in some kind of frenzy in the middle of the road outside of a local Aldi grocery store in the town of Middleton. The man was running wild on a roundabout and appeared to be trying to go after any passing person or vehicle that came near him. Oh yeah, and he was also completely naked. While police responded to the calls immediately, before they could get there, things escalated. In harrowing video footage recorded by bystanders, the crazed suspect can be seen squaring off with a driver outside of an SUV in the middle of the road. Disturbingly, within moments, he attempts to get in through the driver's side door and take off. At the time, there were reportedly children inside the vehicle. The driver can be seen visibly struggling to stop the unknown man. Thankfully, it wasn't long before Good Samaritans stepped in. Some ran to get the children away from the dangerous situation, while others helped to restrain the still violent suspect until police arrived at the scene. Greater Manchester Police later confirmed that they had arrested the man on suspicion of assault and criminal damage. However, they did not identify him by name. Currently, no update has been provided about the unsettling crime, though authorities say the suspect still remains in custody. I gotta say, folks, every time I think I've heard it all before, this series always finds a way to surprise me. Authorities in the South Korean city of Gumi say that a local man is in custody this week after he was busted for a DUI, then allegedly tried to beat the offense by drinking even more alcohol. The whole thing began at around 3:35 a.m. on June 29th, when the suspect in question, a man in his 40s identified only by the letter B, was spotted driving erratically in the city's Hyeonggukdong area. Suspecting he was under the influence, police were called to the scene. However, when they arrived, they got quite the annoying surprise. In the time that it had taken them to respond, the man had gone to a local store where he purchased and consumed additional alcohol. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, what an idiot. Now he looks even more guilty. But there's actually a reason he likely did this. The way DUI cases reportedly work in South Korea is that a lot of the burden is placed on police to prove an accused person's level of intoxication at the time of the offense. This is usually done with standard breathalyzer testing. But there's a catch. If you drink more before police can conduct the test, well, then they can't say with certainty how drunk you were, or even if you were drunk at the time of the alleged DUI. This sounds incredibly silly, and it is, but this fighting fire with fire approach has apparently been a problem for authorities for some time, and according to reports, the tactic, known as alcohol stacking, has gotten plenty of cases thrown out of court in favor of the defendants. Unfortunately for the man in this case, though, it seems he won't be so lucky. You see, this area of the law was recently amended following a high-profile case involving a well-known musician named Kim Ho-jung. Kim was sentenced last month to prison time following a particularly bad example of one of these types of cases. And as of June 4th, under the country's revised Road Traffic Act, attempting to obstruct a sobriety test can now result in significant penalties. It appears that B was unaware of this and straight up admitted to police what he had been trying to do during questioning. He was booked for attempting to obstruct a DUI investigation, and if charged and convicted, is now looking at a sentence of between 1 to 5 years in prison, plus a fine up to the equivalent of $14,500 US. On top of this, his driver's license is subject to cancellation. I guess you could argue, in the end, he was an idiot after all. In a horrifying case of domestic violence and financial desperation, police in southern India say that a man is in custody this week after allegedly setting his own mother on fire due to an ongoing argument over family money. The disturbing incident took place at around 1 a.m. on Saturday, June 28th, at the family's home in the village of Sangam in the state of Telangana. According to reports, the suspect has been identified as Satish Mutaneni, while the victim is his 60-year-old mother, Vinoda. The whole thing reportedly began months earlier, when the family received roughly 2 million rupees, or about $24,000 US, in compensation linked to a local land acquisition project. Of that, 3/4 of the money was given directly to Satish and his sister, while the remaining funds were deposited at a bank so that they could be used by Vinoda and her husband for retirement. Instead of being satisfied with this arrangement, though, Satish allegedly spent the next 6 months pressuring his parents for the rest of the money. Local officials describe him as an alcoholic who repeatedly harassed both Vinoda and his father, Sambaya. The family disputes had grown so intense that Satish actually moved out 3 months ago. But this wasn't the first sign of violence. Police say that about a year ago, Satish tried to harm his mother by setting fire to dry grass near her, an attack she narrowly got away from with only minor injuries. Sadly, though, Vinoda was not so lucky this week. Investigators say they believe Satish secretly returned home under the cover of darkness, carrying a bottle of gasoline. After making his way inside, he began dousing his sleeping mother in the accelerant. Vinoda's husband, Sambaya, woke up because of the strong smell of the gasoline and reportedly tried to stop his son, but it was too late. Before he could do anything, Satish had lit a match and set his mother on fire. Satish reportedly fled the scene immediately afterwards. Hearing Vinoda's screams, neighbors rushed to her aid and extinguished the flames before taking her to a nearby hospital. It was here where doctors confirmed she had sustained burns covering approximately 80% of her body. Though Vinoda managed to cling to life for several days, sadly, she was pronounced dead on the morning of July 1st. While Satish initially managed to escape, police have since announced that they have captured him. At the time of this recording, he remains in custody, and murder charges are currently pending. Representatives from the South Australia Police have released horrifying new details in a local murder case this week, revealing that a former reality TV star has been arrested in connection with the brutal alleged killing of her boyfriend. The case began at around 3:30 p.m. on June 19th, when emergency responders were called about smoke and flames coming from a rental property in the city of Port Lincoln. By the time firefighters and other response personnel arrived, it seems the actual blaze had been extinguished. But as they were about to discover, this was not a simple house fire. Waiting for investigators inside were the partially burned and dismembered remains of a man. It was soon determined that those remains belonged to one of the residents there, 39-year-old Julian Story. Not only was it clear that Julian had been killed before the fire broke out at the residence, but his body had been cut into pieces. While his exact cause of death has not yet been released, what we do know is this: his head was missing. Almost immediately, attention turned to Julian's 34-year-old live-in girlfriend, Tamika Chesser. If you're an Australian viewer and you feel like you recognize Tamika, well, you just might. The 34-year-old is a former television personality and was a runner-up on the second season of the Australian version of the reality show Beauty and the Geek. According to police, Tamika was present at the scene when they arrived and is now accused of killing Julian before dismembering and partially disposing of his remains. It's believed that Julian was murdered sometime around midnight on June 17th. While the circumstances surrounding the killing are very much still under investigation at this time, this week representatives from the South Australia Police released chilling pieces of surveillance footage connected to the case. They allege part of the footage shows Tamika carrying a bag or suitcase with some of Julian's remains inside, while another shows her walking her dogs and holding a jerry can full of gasoline just hours before they were called about the fire at her and Julian's shared residence. As for the motive behind the alleged murder, nothing has been confirmed, though in interviews, Tamika's family members say that she has had significant issues with her mental health since leaving the public spotlight. They say that in the months leading up to the crime, they were extremely concerned for her well-being, and that she was in and out of treatment. Photos and videos now circulating online appear to show her exhibiting bizarre behavior prior to the killing. Her family members claim that in at least one instance, they pleaded with officials to keep Tamika in treatment, but she was discharged anyway. Her sister told reporters, quote, "It's my sister, but that's not who she is or the Tamika we know. That's not the Tamika anyone knows." Currently, Tamika is being held at a mental health facility in police custody on a charge of murder. In the meantime, the search for Julian's missing remains continues. Before we wrap up, we'd like to take a second to give a huge shout out to everyone who has made it this far into the video. Seriously, thank you so much for watching. If you found today's upload interesting and informative, we'd be honored if you'd consider liking and subscribing, as well as hitting the notification bell and selecting all notifications to stay up to date with our latest releases. If you're looking for additional ways to help support the channel, we'd love to have you join us over on Patreon. Patrons get ad-free and early access to all of our content, as well as 4 additional stories per week for each of our Crimes of the Week and Crimes of the Week International videos. You can learn more at patreon.com/crimezone, where you'll also find some of the fine folks whose names are currently on screen. All that being said, we understand that not everyone has the means to support financially, and that's totally okay. We appreciate every like, sub, share, and comment that you send our way. Once again, thanks so much everyone, and take care.